Alright, hello everyone! We are bringing back the How to Win series again, except this time hopefully like a little bit more consistent, and today we're taking a look at Hagglefish Market. So, Hagglefish is a pretty linear stage in theory, mostly due to the fact that it is just a rectangle, but it has a few interesting parts about it. We're going to divide the stage up and talk about different things, because I think this is probably the best stage at teaching people how to play sides of the map, because I think it is very rewarding when done well, but also very punishing when done poorly. And that applies to both stages of the game. So, there are two main parts of the stage that I feel are worth talking about. There's the defensive area that you're retaking in, somewhere behind this line. And then there is the neutral of the map that we'll get to in a second. So, spawn is very open on the left side of the stage. You can see that you can get all the way to the left side very easily. Top right here isn't really ever used. You can technically get up here, but the unpaintable terrain just makes you a target. So if you're ever in a position where this might be a useful spot to go, it's probably also too dangerous at the same time. I think it's one of the least used positions in the entire game. But the top left side of the map can be very useful. In particular, it's nice because it pulls away from where the enemies want to go. Because ideally, when people scale in, I mean, not even ideally, they have to go this way. There's not really any other option. So having a weapon, somewhere over here is a good way to pull attackers away, or just have someone who can shoot them from an alternate angle as they are walking into your base. So defensively, that's very good. The right side of the map does still have its fair share of use cases, though. In particular, it's very good for defenders to be able to get into the bottom right corner. This is like a really underrated retake option because you have a ledge that you can camp under when trying to take care of people under tent, which is one of the more defensive positions, and it also allows you to cross straight into zone if you need to. So that's what I would say is important on the defender's side of things. I don't actually know where the back button is on this anymore. It has been so long. I don't know where the button is to undo. I think I can just control Z it. All right, we're just gonna control Z it. Anyway, so from the attacker's side of things, we'll talk about holding without pushing this far in a minute, but obviously pushing this far in tends to be the main goal. But where do you go from there? You have two main options. There is pushing into the tent, and there's pushing into this bottom corner here. Now, being in the bottom right corner gives you ledges and cover. It's also far away from the defensive positions. There's a risk that the defensive team will simply try and break away from you into the zone. But for the most part, it's a good position to go to be able to pull attention away and prevent defenders from scaling into the zone. You want them to try and fight you in those positions, and you can also very easily drop back into middle if you're contested. And if you're left alone and the defenders are not fast enough at pushing into middle, you can then flank behind them quite easily. So once attackers can get in, this position is very strong. If you can get past the initial ramps and make it all the way into their base, you get a whole lot of credit and a lot of things that you can work off of. But you have to make it far enough for that to be a reality first. And that is kind of some of the main challenges of the stage itself. So I already talked a little bit about the neutral of this map, but I haven't talked about this bottom left side as much. In general, I would classify these sides as very different. I'm going to look at this from the attacker's POV, so going that way, From the attacker's point of view, the left side over here is your faster flank option by a lot, because you have to jump onto this high ground, and these jumps are very awkward and very risky, or you have to go around, and it's not great, so all of those can work against you. Whereas on this side, it's just a very easy cross you can do from multiple different directions. Both of them have ledges you can camp under, but I think the key difference is the fact that the tent is present up here. If there's an anchor on this position, then it's really difficult to actually use the left side of the map to try and find your way through. It's just not really an optimal play you'll be able to make while most weapons are in that position. What I do think is really important, though, about the sides of the map here is they're very easy to stay in. If you drop in the corner and play your cards right on either position, it's not hard to stay in the position and threaten an angle. And that gets me into the main thing that's important for this map in particular, which is, while the sides of the map are important, they're also very narrow. You can't put more than one usually person down here. Very rarely you'll see two, but usually only if we're going very fast. When it comes to this map, a lot of the strategy comes from using one of these sides of the stage to pull attention and use that to set up the brunt of your push through the middle of the map, which you can't really do effectively without the sides, and I think that's why it's such a good teacher for playing the sides of the map here. Because if you try to brute force it through the middle of the stage without any control on the sides, it is super easy to get pincered. There's very strong defensive positions. There's a lot of cover around both sides of mid. There's like plenty of defensive spots people can go into. There's so many different places the enemy team can go to deal with you that you kind of are forced to use the sides of the map in some way. At the same time, though, if you're too dependent on them, if your game plan is pushing through the sides and the people in the middle of the map are kind of just standing there, not doing anything, then the sides of the map are going to really struggle to get anything done because they're not, you know, open enough or wide enough or at a good enough angle to really solo a team fight by itself, and it's very easy to be aware of these angles. So the sides of the map have like a very interesting like power scale when it comes to this stage, right? It's very interesting how they work and the dynamic that comes from that. Besides that are a few other small details, mainly what happens when you push into this area. So again, we'll use the attacker's point of view. Let's say you win a fight in mid, and you want to fight into kind of this space here. That's not like a fully accurate cube. It needs to be like this, I guess, because you'll technically camp this ledge. Something like that is more accurate. I think that one of the most important things to be aware of is not to get trapped right here. It can be very tempting to get in this position, especially for AoE weapons that have a way to hit around the wall to be able to hit people climbing up to tent. But it's ultimately a bit of a trap. Unless you can find the kills very quickly, you're just in the middle of everything, especially from this defensive position we talked about earlier. Instead, I think, you know, players playing somewhat stealthily over here can have a lot of options. If it's open, they can dive in, they can still camp for kills, and they can very easily dip out of position, so that can be useful. The other obvious one is just playing under the tent. You know, it's similar to this position, but far less exposed. You're still able to ledge camp. And if people look at you, it also makes it easier for your remaining teammates to try and push. Whereas if someone gets caught here, it's a lot easier to see. And again, like with the right side of the map, very easy to drop into the side. You can still get pincered from defensive players using this angle if the other team pushes this way. You can still get caught in the tent between both sides. But for the most part, I don't think it's like too much of a concern that you have to worry about. Ultimately, I think Hagglefish Market is a stage that really emphasizes playing the sides properly. It can be a good teacher for that. Specials are pretty valuable here at choke points in the map, mainly when trying to push into the enemy spawn or retake back into the middle of the map. But the middle of the stage is definitely much more main weapon fighting focused, and it leads to a lot of interesting brawls and skirmishes to try to force people through the middle of the map. I find it very interesting. All right, thanks for watching.